Hey, Rainbow Bases, it's Tom Auger. I'm back. I was so sad that I couldn't be singing with you this term that I just stole a copy of, well, didn't steal, I grabbed a copy of some of the music and I've been going through it and fell in love with this Morten Lauridsen, yet another great Morten Lauridsen piece on this shining night. I've been singing it a bit last night and I thought, well, why don't I come back, really learn the bass part now, and look at some of the pitch challenges. It's a classical piece of music, so it's unlike a lot of the music that we sing. It's got these really long lines. I can't help you with that because my breath control is crappy, so you're on your own for that. But I really want to talk about getting the pitches. The timing is the timing. If you can count, you can probably get it. I find that tapping my foot to every beat is really helpful here. So I won't say too much about the timing. It's really all about the pitch. So okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about theory for the next, I don't know, 5 minutes or so. So if you know your theory and you've studied all this stuff, and just move on, or you can probably skip this video because you probably sight reading this song. But if you don't have a strong musical theory background, there's a couple of things that are, if I can get this in your head, I think it's really going to help. The first thing is the key of this song is D flat major. So there's your D flat major chord, with that being D flat being your what's called tonic or root. It's the one. If you were to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth, that's the one. Okay. So we are starting on the root. And the reason it's important to understand the root is because you hear it. Like when you hear the song, you hear the piano start, and the piano basically, starts like this in the bass, right? That's what you hear. So you're hearing on this shining night. So it's already, that's the note. So we're already starting on. So the first notes that you hear in the bass are going to get you anchored. And what we need to do is we really need to become sensitive to the tonal movement in a piece. That's going to really help us find our pitches in a lot of cases. Okay. This piece is really pretty easy because it doesn't move from that root very much at all. That's a Morten Lauridsen special. He just sits in there and he does all these things. He's just playing with that in that root. So the D is going to always be our anchor, and we're going to come back to it. So if we can hear that constantly and feel the D, feel that the D is where, that's the resting place. That's where we start, and that's where I'm assuming that's where we end as well, unless he has us ending on a fifth or something. But sure. Yeah. So we end on the D. We start on the D. The D is our home, right? So that's super important. So if we can hear the D, anytime we see a D, we know where we are. We can already find it, whether it's the low D that we sing or the high D that we sometimes sing, and some of us are going to hate it. So yeah, like for example here, right? But so that's important. The next thing it's important to be able to find, because he starts us off on this note a lot, and it's another anchor that we can really anchor around. And this is typical of most Western harmony, is the fifth. So we had the D, right? That's the D. And so that fifth is the A flat. And we're going to find that a lot as well. So, so we go, right, there's our A right there. Kindness must watch for me beside the ground. And that's a low A flat down there. So that's a little low for me, but there it is. So, and the A always wants to resolve back to the D. The A flat wants to resolve back to the D. So you can feel that. There's a little bit of tension, but it's a good natural kind of tension. So if we can automatically find those two notes, we've solved a lot of problems. There's a third note that can be extremely helpful in all music. I use this all the time, and that's the third. And when I find one that I'm having trouble with, I write it down. Like if you start on the third, that one should be fairly easy to find as well, because as some of you know from musical theory, the third determines the quality of the chord. Is it a quote unquote happy chord? Or is it a quote unquote unhappy chord? So it's that note that changes. And it's still called the third, but it could be a major third or a minor third. Now in this song, the third is always going to be major because we're in the key of, as I said, D major, or D flat major rather. So that's the F. Sigh the ground. Sa, sa, and then A, F sharp, or sorry, F, D flat, F, A flat. So if we can find those three tones, that's going to help a lot. The rest of them kind of move around. There is a part later on which gets much trickier. First of all, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. So let's just sort of start. So this is pretty easy to start with once you've read the lyrics through. Sure on this shining night of star-made shadows round, kindness. So there's that E flat. Kindness must watch for me this side the ground. Okay? And then this is the hard melodic part. And so I think it's just a matter of sort of memorizing this thing and going over it again. The hardest part is going to be going from here. Can I draw on it? Yes, here down to here. Now that, down to there. Okay. Now that's called an octave, right? It's going from one note to the note of the same name an octave lower. Oops, sorry. So that's the hardest one because it's a big jump, a jump of 8 notes, but it's the same note. So if you've been anchoring yourself on this tonic, D, whether we're here or down here, it's kind of the same thing. So how do we find these G's, right? So there's G there, there's a G there. The G is the fourth in the scale, so it's a G flat. It's not as easy to find. So what I do, if we know our three notes, we've got the, right, we've talked about the third. So it's just one note up from there. In fact, it's a semitone up from there. And we also know our fifth. And it's a whole tone down from there. Oh, so I'm just singing these three notes here. Oh, 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 oh. Maybe that'll help. If you just sort of practice that little descending scale, hear it in your head. Try to not do it with music. I'm not going to play anything. Can you hear? Can you find the A flat? So here's our D. Can you sing the A flat? Okay, and let's try the F now. That's the third. So here's the D again. I'm acting like I can listen. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Again. Okay, so now that we have the G is in the middle. Okay, so let's try to put this together with that knowledge. Whoa. Where we are. Like this. Okay, so I find that this G is the hardest one to get, and I think it's a matter of kind of memorizing that. So I think if we just kind of hold in our heads, right, that G, which we can get pretty easily because we have it over here, then maybe we can find that. So let's try that. Here we are. Okay, so that's how we get that. Now, there's a little breath here, and depending on how Allison conducts it, some conductors put a really long pause there, but you certainly have time to catch your breath before doing the reverse octave. Remember, we had that octave Well, I guess that octave here, mo, and then we go back up. The shine, and we want to have a lot of sparkle in our voice, so it's like eyebrows raised and not a smile because that tightens the lips, but a smile in the cheeks, right? That's the best sound I can do this morning with a stuffed nose, but anyway. Okay, so let's sure on this shining night of stars made sad around, kindness must watch for me this side the ground. On this shining night, this shining night. So you'll want to have better breathing than I have. I'm sitting down, probably need to, that should all be one long note. If you have to sneak a breath, obviously stagger it, the breathing with the people around you to get that in, but really want these lines to be long and smooth. The shining night, shining night. Now I'm not really counting here, so I don't know how long I held that note for, but we're really just focusing on the melody here. Okay. The good news is this is the exact same melody that the tenors are singing as well. Up to this point, we're completely in unison with the tenors, and it's a total bass tenor fest. Okay, so how do we come in here? Well, remember that's your fifth. That's the A. So if you hear the D, then the A flat should be able to come to you right off the bat. Sure on this shining, sure. Right? So bum, bum. But there's another trick here, and that is if you're listening to the tenors, they've got that essentially the same note. So you can listen to them, and they come in just quickly before. Sure on this anyway. Sure. So then they got the sure on this shining. What do? We stay on the A? Yes. So we just stay on the A. So that should be not too bad to come in. Sure on this shining night. Sure on this shining night. This shining, shining night. Sure on this shining night. So that little melodic pattern is very similar to what we had earlier on when we were doing this stuff. So it's just a slight variation on it. And of course, I'm singing the tenor part. What the hell am I doing? All right, it's even easier. Night, sure on this shaw. So that's your third again. Shining night. Okay, so that's almost exactly the same thing as this one over here. Where is it? Yeah, it's the same as that. Except for we don't go down. So where are we again? Instead of back to the A. Shining night, this. So if you can just, work your way up, that's just going up the scale. And then back down to the D. So that looks like a scary jump. It's a sixth. I find sixths are very hard to hear in sight reading, right? So it's, I don't know, that one's a lot harder than a fifth. But in this case, it doesn't matter. We don't have to think about that interval because we're just going back to our home. Night this, which we just had here. La la, la la, la la, la la. So you can practice that little interval. nine, ignite this, nine, ignite this. Okay. And then it goes even lower. Now I find this is the hardest interval to find, even though that's another A flat. But it's in a kind of a different role. So, because it goes, and I'm just going to go down an octave here. So that's this line here. No. So that's very low for me also, but anyway, so we're here. Light this shining night. So putting it together. This. Can you hear it? So again, from here. So don't miss out on that. C is not a very intuitive C. This one works because we're leading up to the home again, to our root, to our tonic. So that's just leading up there. But the first one's a little funky. And of course, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, then down. Okay. So I think hopefully that's good. Now let's move on to, so this is a high part. It's not too bad. Well, we do get up to an E, which can be challenging for some. Luckily, we sort of slide into it, so you can just be more quiet about it, and you don't have to be too pitch perfect because we're not starting on it. Just try to keep it bright. All is hell. Oh. Hear how, for me anyway, my D's I'm comfortable. My E's start to get into really close to the edge of my range. So the quality of my voice changes. I don't know if this is a good thing or not. I'm not a vocal teacher, so I could be giving you complete garbage. I kind of just, I don't want to say you tighten everything up because that's a no-no, but I feel like I'm just going up. People call it a head voice. I don't know about that stuff. There's something that happens just in the sort of the top of my mouth that just gets me up to that note. You can hear it's just not as full. I'm much more at the top, the palate, like the top of my mouth. It seems like that's where I'm feeling the sound more than in the chest with, it's right here. Anyway, okay, I'm not going to teach anybody anything about vocals because I really don't know. I know how to read music and that's about it. Okay, so so here we are on our fifth again. So that's the right, and then up to our D. La, la. So do we hear that A anywhere? It's here, but it's really hard to find. I really think this is going to be one of those cases where learning to hear the fifth and be ready for it is going to help you because it's not really obviously played. It's there, but it's like whatever. And it's not even really here it is there, but that's hard. There's a lot of things going on in the piano. So I don't think you're kind of on your own. Again, the tenors are doubling what we're singing, but if we are still anchored in D flat. So that's our fifth. The late year lies down the north. All is healed, all is health. So again, the late year lies down the north. All is healed, all is health. I like healed. Anything with an E, I find easier to sing in the higher register, so I don't have too much trouble with the healed or even the is. Oh, it's a bit more open, and that's why I think I cheat with that little thing that I do. I don't know. Anyway, what is there anything else that's hard about this? The B flat is unusual, just in that we don't sing that note a lot. So it's we're gonna have to kind of hear that melodically and know that we're going there. Laid your lies down the north. So in fact, what we're kind of doing, we're kind of modulating to the fourth of D flat, which is going to be our G flat major chord, and B is the third of that. But that's getting a little technical, right? And I don't think it is actually helping anyone too much, except that if we got good at hearing the F, it's the same relationship. The north, all is healed. So how do we find this F sharp? Sorry, it's not F sharp, it's F neutral. Let's see. I think the way I'm hearing it, I'm doing this, the north, and I hear that still in my head, and I know I'm just going down. All is healed, down the north. All is healed, all is health. All right, that's good. This is going to be a challenge for many of you. I will say, don't stress it. If you stress it, it's going to make it worse. I know it's unintuitive, but if you're like, oh my God, there's an E flat, I'm gonna have to hit this E flat. That's not going to help you because you're going to tighten up and you're going to strain your voice. You're going to hurt yourself. So you're better off not singing it. How would that work? All is healed. All is health. All is health. I don't know. That might clash too much. So yeah, just go quiet, you know? All right. Enough about that. You can talk to a real vocal coach if you want to get your upper register going. I'm actually going for a lesson on Thursday, specifically about that, and I'll let you know if I learn anything interesting. High sun, so we're back to the D, the high D. High summer holds the earth, hearts all whole. So if we've learned our, sorry. Let's go up an octave here. So if we've learned our three notes that we have to learn, our one, which is up here, our fifth, and our third. So we're just going down that musical scale. Earth, hearts all whole. Earth, hearts all whole. Earth, hearts all whole. Summer holds the earth, hearts all whole. Okay, now we're coming to probably the second hardest or third hardest interval for me in the whole piece, and that's finding this B flat. So there's a couple of ways that you can do it. Eventually, all is healed. All. No. Let's see. Okay. One way, the way that I was doing it at first is just we trained ourselves to hear that fifth. Sorry. So this is just one note above that. Sorry. All is healed. All is healed. So if we can, we're here. Hear the fifth, but don't sing it. It's just this. And then just go up by one. That's a good way of getting it. The other way, maybe this will help, I don't know, is remember how we have the fifth which is from D flat is the A flat. Well, the fifth of F is the C. So there's a bit of what's called a modulation, where we kind of shifting the root temporarily. So we're doing an F minor chord. So if we think about the C as the highest note in that figure, then we just have to lead up to it. So that's another way of trying it. Whole, 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 all is healed. So that's a hard one. I'm not gonna lie. High summer holds the earth, hearts all whole. All is healed. Oh, okay. And then we're just going back up that same scale. And now we're modulating back to the D flat. So it's that F minor again, which is the same thing that we were using to help us, well, find that C. All is health, all is health. Okay. So here. All is health, all is health. High summer holds the earth. And I'm going to say one thing about these thirds. Because their quality is so important, we talked about major and minor. Sorry, major, minor. Major, minor. It's really important if we're supposed to be singing major that we pitch it up, because otherwise if it's halfway in between there, that's just a mess, and we can't even figure it out, and it sounds really terrible. Anyone who's singing the third has a huge responsibility to the intonation of that particular passage. So when we are holding the F, we have to be really nice and tend to be flat, right? So nice and, I don't want to say sharp in pitch, but do all the tricks that you've learned to stay sharp. Listen, keep your sort of head up, your eyebrows up if you need to. Don't tense out your mouth, but smile. All those things. Think about the music coming up. All these sort of mental tricks that vocal coaches will tell you. It sounds like complete gibberish, but sometimes actually works. Anyway, whoa, this is getting to be a long video. Sorry for all the rambling. I just miss you guys. That's all. Okay. So, high summer. High summer holds the earth, hearts all whole. All right, so how the heck do we find that damn C? I kind of lucked out, actually. And I think I lucked out because I've been practicing it, and it eventually gets into your memory, and you kind of hear it. But that's a really hard, that's like, I think, the hardest or the second hardest note to find. Because again, we're dealing with a sixth situation, right? Because we're going from minor sixth. So that's really a hard interval to find. The good news, the way I trained myself to find it, was back to our home, back to our root. So, because we want to go hearts all whole, hearts all whole. But we're not. We know we're going one note lower. Hearts on, not whole, but whole. And what am I singing? What am I even playing? Yeah, F, right? I don't know why I said it was a minor sixth, because it's absolutely not a minor sixth. It's a fourth, and I'm an idiot. And some of you are just going, Tom, what the hell, man? Okay, so we're going from the F. So if you can hear the home where we eventually want to be, then that's going to help you find that. Now, in this little passage, we're kind of, yeah. On this shining night. Pick your poison there. Which line you want to sing? Sure on this shining night, or sure on this shining night. Both are fairly easy to find. Just pick one. Oh, sure on this shining night. So it's a little easier to go up simply because we're going back to that A flat, which we've also drilled into our heads. And so maybe that's going to be a little bit easier. There's your minor 6. See? So back to here again. I, summer, holds the earth, hearts all whole. Okay, let's try that again. I, summer, holds the earth, hearts all whole. So I'm pausing there just to give you a chance to sing it without me and see if you can get it. And if not, pause the video, go over it a couple times until you can. The summer holds the earth, hearts all whole, sure on this shining night. So we're going back to that note there. So that's how I'm remembering it. High, oh, sure. So if you want to practice just the intervals, high, hearts, whole, sure. Okay. Shining night, sure on this. So that's just up a note. You know what I do sometimes? I put a little note head. Like I would just put a little note head right in here on my score, and I put it in brackets to remind me that's where I'm going, so that I can see very clearly the direction that I'm moving in, and it helps me to find the note as I'm switching down, maybe turning the page or whatever. It's not so much about memorizing the note and turning the page. It's really about preparing yourself to go up or down and to realize that it's very close. It's not a big jump or anything. Sure on this shining night. And there is the hardest interval in the piece, in my opinion, to find. And that's, again, now it's that minor 6 that I was talking about. The good news is, if you want to call it good news, it's kind of, we're going back down to the same C here that we were just talking about. Hearts all whole. Oh, shining night. So that's the only difference, right? And then, once I'm there, this is the 3. So I would actually, if I needed to, mark the 3 because I'm used to hearing that 3 sound now. So I can find that note really without having to worry about what the interval is. So I'm not trying to go, whatever that is, a 7th, which is a ridiculous interval to try to figure out. I'm just going to that F sharp. If you need, there's not a lot of time to hear the D in your head. There's the D. That's where you're going. That's where you are. But it's still all part of that chord, isn't it? Sure on this shining night. And yeah, maybe this is the hardest interval, actually. that passage, those 3 jumps that we have to do down to the C or down to the B are going to be the hardest ones, and this is where you should really focus almost all of your learning time with this piece. So let's see here. Where are we? Sure on this shining night. How do we find that B flat? How did I find it? Well, if we're breaking it down slowly, again, your home is where we want to end up in our heads. He's not resolving it. That's kind of what we think we're going to do, right? And end there. We don't end there. We go leave it kind of unresolved. But that's not the point. The point is if we can hear that we're headed up to the D flat, and then we know we're not going 1 step to it, we're 2 steps. That's kind of Okay, then we just sort of sit around that B flat for a while. I weep alone. And this is, he's changed keys a little bit, modulated a little bit to give it that solitude. This is kind of like the only section of the piece where he modulates for any kind of length of time to B flat. So, alone of shadows on the stars. This being the lowest note in the song. I can't really hit that, but come up if you're in bass 1. And then that's it. I think we've done it. Because then we're back to our home. Sure on this shining, and this is the same melody. Shining night of star-made shadows round, kindness must wash for me this side the ground. I don't understand. What is this? What? I want to put an of in there, side of the ground. Because I heard something about this being a piece about fallen soldiers. Which is why I would think on this side of the ground as opposed to, on the other side of the ground. Anyway, on the shining night, this shaw. So that's an octave there. This shining night. So that one I don't think is going to be too problematic. Just, I have a tendency of sometimes messing up my octave when I'm listening to the whole thing and going back to the root because it's such a strong note, but we're actually going down. The shining night. All right. I think that's it. I hope this was helpful. I apologize for it being long and long-winded and all of that stuff. Hopefully there's some tips in here that are helpful to you, that kind of work. I'm looking forward to hearing you folks sing it. That would be great. And maybe, invite me to a sectional or something just to have some fun and sing with you folks. Anyway, if you have any other requests or if this is helpful to you and there's a song you're struggling with, just shoot me an email. It's always the same email, tom@outlook.com, and be happy. Sing well, my friends, and have a great term.